Hello, everybody, and welcome back once more to Anime Yay or Nay. I am TheOutbackAl.
I'm Yin&Jung.
I'm Chibi Noob.
I'm Envy Jitters.
I'm CheerandCosplay. And I'm Kozi.
And we're back after a short break where we're in a new section, more or less. This is post 200 episodes, and we're going into what did we decide on? We were like, there was a new Makoto Shinkai movie that came out. Let's not for now.
Shinkai.
You know, as excited as you can be, keep that energy for maybe another 2 years. We'll see what happens. But yeah, no, there was a recent Makoto Shinkai movie that came out in the middle of the last tournament that we were involved in. So we might as well start talking about it now, after everyone's already probably seen it. But, you know, we'll try to keep spoilers out of it. We watched Suzume weeks ago, to be clear.
Yeah.
It was
a very nice break.
Yeah. Was it like a week after it came out, or was it like that weekend?
I think it was the week it came out.
Okay.
I think it was the same weekend it came out.
Okay.
Yeah, not the day it came out.
Right.
Because
yeah.
I think it came out on like a Thursday.
Yeah, they're starting to do that more with a lot of
yeah.
with a lot of movies. But yeah, so we saw that and we figured, you know, since we can talk about that, and we might as well for the rest of like the next coming weeks, we might look at a couple other Makoto Shinkai movies because we really haven't looked at any of his stuff on this before. And figured, you know, it's kind of nice to showcase certain filmmakers or certain things. Like, it's nice to have a theme going. People can look forward to stuff. So we'll talk a little bit more about that at the end. But for now, let's talk Suzume. So we went and saw this all together. And what is our initial thoughts on everything?
Very pretty.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
Yes, it's definitely all of Makoto Shinkai's works are very pretty.
Oh, yeah. His...
True.
Like, what was the joke?
Five wallpapers.
Five
for a
anime
second.
wallpapers, yeah.
And they all have a very unique style. You know, he does the lens flares a lot.
Yeah.
He does the...
But without going overboard like J.J. Abrams.
Yeah, the pretty pastel colors.
Mhm.
The kind of universe-looking, like, sky.
I mean, that's always seems to be like a thing. There's always something to do with the sky or space or the
Yeah.
stars or some element like that. There's usually some timey-wimey, wibbly-wobbly stuff involved.
Usually,
a little bit.
Yeah.
Or at least
I
or at
would
least
say-
the concept.
Concept of
I
the
think
passage.
this might have been one of his weirdest concepts
And
to
yet,
date.
It's
and
definitely
yet-
the most fantastical.
well, I mean, we'd have to compare it like in the next couple of weeks when we compare it to some of his other ones. I actually felt this one, at least in its kind of vibe, felt a little more grounded. It's got a bit more of an urban fantasy kind of thing of like this world that exists just beyond the boundaries of the real world, but still affects everybody a little bit.
I think it depends on how you consider weird. Like, it feels more fantastical than some of them in the sense that there's more of that, like, structured fantasy element.
Like the underground world kind of.
Yeah.
Okay.
So a lot of his films have very slice of life feels to them. If not,
Yeah.
a lot of his earlier works were almost completely like
Yeah.
slice of life.
Yeah.
They're
yeah.
more magical realism than pure fantasy.
Yeah.
Whereas this one leans more heavily into the fantasy.
No, yeah, that's what I was kind of,
It was more prominent throughout the entire thing. This did not feel very slice of life. This was very much a girl taken out of her slice of life.
And I think that's kind of why, like, ones like Your Name and Weathering With You almost feel weirder, because the fantastical elements feel more random, I guess, than this one, where it feels, like I said, more structured fantasy, like what you would find in a lot of YA novels and stuff like that.
I kind of hear what you're saying, but I
Well,
think
sure.
Weathering With You, they did kind of talk about that was a regular thing, the fantastical element of that one, didn't they?
Yeah,
So
but...
the thing with magical realism is the fact that it is far more prominent in Japanese media and literature than it is over here, like in the West.
Right.
So that's just something to consider with how their media is produced and the kinds of things that they will make. Because I've read a decent amount of Japanese novels, like Haruki Murakami is a very prevalent author that uses a lot of magical realism in his writing.
This is probably a larger conversation for later, but do you think that it might have to go back, might have something to do with like the history of with like Shinto and stuff like that, where everything sort of has a spirit a little bit, so everything is inherently magical?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would say, like, that sort of stuff is still, like, more heavily ingrained in their culture. Kind of like how fairies are kind of still more heavily, like, ingrained in Irish culture.
Okay.
So it's kind of like it's still very connected with things even in the present day. So there is that.
Did everybody else? Envy, I don't think you really got to speak much yet. What was your initial thoughts?
Well, I don't want to start controversy right out of the gate, but I would say out of the 3 films I've seen of him, Your Name, Weathering with You, and Suzume, this might be my personal favorite out of the 3.
Okay.
I really enjoyed the movie. There was a few things I wish they would have done better, and it is a very long movie, but I still thought that the overall story that they told, again, this might be I know we might have to wait until we see the other 3 movies to do a compare, but I feel like, to me, this was the one that felt the most fleshed out of all 3 of the films. I felt like his messages and his themes with Suzume had the most development in comparison to Your Name and Weathering with You personally.
Okay.
Oh, you're really gonna love 5 centimeters.
Well, I haven't seen that yet.
Oh, if you want fleshed out, you'll get fleshed out.
Yeah, I'll let you know in advance. We're probably going to take a look at that at some point in the next couple of weeks. So, we can talk probably a little bit. I don't want to spoil anything if you haven't seen this movie yet, so we won't talk in a ton of detail, but the basic premise, because the trailer is a little bit vague. It doesn't give all of the plot away. I think everyone knows that there is some magical elements with a door, and there's a chair who's a person, and a talking cat. But, there can be 1,001 plots for that. So, in broad strokes, our main character, Suzume, meets a guy. Name escapes me. Give me 1 second.
Howl. It's Howl.
It is Howl,
he's
but
basically
it's,
Howl.
Yeah, Sota?
Mm-hmm.
Sota. Yeah, so Suzume meets Sota, a little bit of an older guy in college. He's kind of going around from place to place. His job, and I say job in air quotes because it's more of a
personal
not
duty.
So much secret society. It's more of a family business kind of deal where he goes
Family
around.
lineage.
Yes, he on the edge of society. There's dilapidated places that hold old memories of people who used to live or experience things there, at old schools or amusement parks, stuff like that. Things where there's a lot of emotions and memories that are kind of trapped a little bit in those places, and they create gateways to this other world. And his job is basically to make sure those doors stay closed so that giant worms don't shoot out of the doors and cause earthquakes in Japan. Which I'm not super familiar with all of the folklore around Japan and some of its older mythologies and stuff. I that's an interesting one for okay, why are there so many earthquakes in Japan? There are giant worms coming out of the ethereal realm and just smashing down on the ground.
Sure. Didn't you go to 8th grade science class?
Well, I did, but I didn't pay attention. So, this might have been explained to me and I just forgot. Any case, it's an interesting premise, and Suzume unfortunately does some stuff that might have caused something to happen, that now there's a talking cat that turns a man into a chair, and now she's got to be the one to start closing the doors. Again, trying not to go into too many details, but that's the basic, inciting incident, and then they're traveling around trying to get him unchaired. Essentially. I don't...
Yep.
What else do you want to call it? Depolymorphed?
Nah, you're right.
I know. I just think there might be a better term for it, but yeah, that's essentially it. And it's a bit more of a road trip kind of thing. That's actually something that comes up a lot in Shinkai's work, is road trips. And a lot of traveling stuff.
Yeah, and you also... And there's... And the main plot also ties into Suzume's... backstory, which it's an anime film, so you know what that means. Tragic backstory.
Yeah, I mean, they kind of let you know that in the very beginning, but there's a lot of like any other Shinkai work, there's a lot of character stuff where it's it gets heavy at moments. It's gonna do that. He's very good at pulling on people's emotional strings a little bit, and he does it here too. So can't say I was complaining though. He does a great job with it. What else stood out to you guys?
The emotions weren't necessarily as tragic, but they were probably far more relatable than things we normally saw.
Yeah, we brought up 5 centimeters per second. I actually think that one kind of also is kind of close in this, where it's very much more like real world, kind of like, despite the fantastical elements in this movie, it is the emotional, like, character stuff is very much like, oh, you could have this feeling yourself, and depending on what your life is, or you might know someone who's going through some stuff like this.
Yeah, like, somehow I don't think all of us can relate to, spoilers for Your Name, a giant meteor wiping out your entire town.
Little extreme, but yeah.
I don't think we can relate to that.
Yeah, I don't know. There's probably a couple situations where you could be, maybe, but it is pretty extreme. That's like a once in a lifetime sort of event.
We can look at it and, like, go, oh, yes, that's sad, but it's not necessarily something that we personally feel sad about, if that makes sense.
In a way, well,
where, as Suzume, I think you felt more connected to, like, her journey and some of the things happening to her.
Sure, we've all seen the giant earthquake causing worms.
Yes.
Right. And yet, Cece does nothing about them. I'm just going to throw out there.
It's not my job.
Cece opens the doors.
Cece, goddamn it.
Chaos.
How many times we have to tell you to stop opening doors to the ethereal plane? It's a weekly occurrence with you. I'm trying to think what else to talk about here. I think, Envy, I was talking to you, like, right after the movie. It's interesting. I mean, like, last episode, we did talk a little bit about, like, everything we talked about, and which included a lot of Ghibli films. This felt like the most Ghibli movie that was not made by Ghibli, to me.
Oh, yeah. There was elements of Mononoke, there was elements of Howl, there was elements of some of his life, slice of life works.
Yeah.
Of the studio slice of life stuff, like, yeah. And you
Elements.
mentioned, I think in last week's podcast, or the last podcast, that, like, Ghibli needs somebody to really take it over, be the new head honcho, and
I'm not saying
if his son isn't going to do it,
but, like, they need to start working with people, and just throwing it out there, I don't know whether Shinkai would be willing to do this, but he might be a good transition into, like, we're going to go from a very Miyazaki thing to maybe let's spread our ideas out into some other stuff. But
Well, I feel like you've brought this up a few times.
Oh,
Didn't
I guarantee
Ghibli
you.
steal something out from under Makoto Shinkai?
that I don't remember. I do
never heard
remember
that.
bringing up this whole they need to branch out a little bit
No,
every
no,
time we
like,
bring up Ghibli.
There was a project that someone else was going to work on.
No,
he said the director of Summer Works was going to do Howl, but then
Yeah.
they changed it.
That
okay.
that was like not stealing. It was like they hired him. They were in pre-production. They were just about to start like doing like the actual like animation and stuff like that. And they were just like, you know what, this is not going to work, because he was like, I'm not going to make a Miyazaki movie. I'm not Miyazaki. I'm going to make a me movie. And they were like, well,
Gotcha.
this isn't going to work out then. But that's kind of my whole thing that I keep bringing. I'm not going to bring it up again here. If you want, go look back at any of the other Ghibli things we've reviewed, or the last episode where we talk about it. You can look at it there. I'm not going to bring it up again for now. But in regard to this might be a nice person to maybe bring it and be like, hey, this felt very Miyazaki, but also very your own. Maybe you could help us transition from being, hey, we can only make a Miyazaki movie, to making other movies that have the feel and sort of, I don't know what the exact words, but feel is one of the words for it. The feel of a Ghibli movie without it having to just be a Miyazaki movie. But I don't know. That's a much bigger thing for them to figure out, if they'll figure it out. I do think, like, definitely they took a note out of Miyazaki's book for how to animate water in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, the water is. Yeah, the whole movie's gorgeously animated.
Mhm.
Like, I forget the studio's name off the top of my head, but
Toho.
yeah, they've animated at least the last 3 of his films. I don't know if they did all of his filmography, but
yeah, there was also Comics Wave Films was involved with it,
Mm-hmm.
who's worked on a lot of his works. And there was also music by Radwimps. Again,
Yeah.
I think he just really
He uses
likes
them
them.
every time now.
Yeah, that's his Scorsese and the Rolling Stones thing for him.
hey, if it works, it works.
No, you're right. I still might think that I liked it best in Your Name, but I think Your Name might be his favorite of my movies. As much of a basic bitch statement as that is. Yeah. But, you know, we're
No,
going to
I
have to
agree
rewatch
with you
that
on that. But if we watch Your Name, we'll get to that.
We'll definitely be looking at that and some other things. So, trying to think what else we should talk about, because I don't want to go into spoilers here, just in case people
I
have...
want to give huge props to whoever the Foley artists behind the movie were.
Oh, with the chair feet?
Yes.
That was great.
Well, honestly,
The chair feet, like, moving in the fields and the snow, the amusement parks, like,
yeah,
they did a very good job.
It really helped, because sound design is really important for, like, adding to that vibe of, like, these desolated areas, but also this sort of, like, slice of life, but also magical Ghibli feel that we're going. I should stop calling it Ghibli, because this is still very much its own thing. But it is that sort of evokes this real world, while also...
So many people would leave something empty and abandoned as, like, empty sound-wise as well.
Yeah.
But one of those things they found is people can sit through, like, really bad-looking visuals, but if it has bad audio, they're very likely to shut it off.
It's like editing a little bit.
That actually... This is a different point, but speaking of the chair and, you know, the physics with the sounds of the chair, I will say this isn't a straightforward comedy movie, but it's easily the funniest movie out of the three that I've seen from him. Like, there was some moments that we all genuinely laughed out loud at in the theater over, especially the shenanigans whenever he's a chair, because, well, he's a walking chair.
Yeah.
So, needless to say, shenanigans ensue.
I think, like, and I know this is, again, it's a chair, it's a little bit fantastical, it's a person who's not a person at this point, but, like, I think Shinkai always does well with, like the real world, like, real life funny moments. Like, even when they're in a fantastical kind of thing, like, we've all had those moments with friends where, like, something just kind of, like, someone misses something, or someone, like, just does something that's just kind of, like, is funny in the moment, and you just have this genuine, like, laugh of, like, this is just life and this experience and this kind of thing. And yeah, he's really good at that. Did you just drop a picture of a place from the movie?
No. This is a
Yeah.
This is a gate I used to pass by every day on my way to work.
Oh. Is that where the worm came out?
Yeah.
Speaking of
damn.
which,
I told you, Cece opened the door.
God
so,
damn it, Cece.
definitely one of
speaking
those
of the
worm doors.
worm, I did actually look into, like, what they thought caused earthquakes in Japan as far as their mythology is concerned. It is not a worm. It was a catfish.
Oh.
It's called namazu, So, and if you go to namazu on Wikipedia, they have, like, a little article just about, like, the catfish, and I think it's its tail that under the waves would cause earthquakes and tsunamis, which apparently this movie is actually based on the 2011 earthquake and tsunami in Japan. So.
Yeah, I was seeing a thing about that on the wiki page.
Yeah, so at least the abandoned places holding the memories, opening doors to another world, that's like an actual belief. It's usually like to the afterlife or something like that, but
I mean, not to get into, like, the idea of spoilers, but, like, it is sort of the other world, the beyond world, so to some degree they are still doing that in this movie. But I guess it's also, like, the idea of, like, memories dying or feeling like they've died a little bit.
I mean, do we want to do a spoiler section, basically? You know, warn people, you know, if we want to talk specifics.
I mean, I don't know. How do you guys feel about that? We can if you guys want. Like, I feel like we'll do plenty of spoilers for the other movies because, like, they've been out for a couple of years, but I was a little cautious with this one since it was pretty recent.
Yeah, I think you can hotkey even into the description timestamp to skip past it.
Okay, yeah. If you want to talk spoilers, 3, 2, 1, spoilers. Who wants to talk what?
Well, Envy, you brought it up.
Well, I mean...
What did you want to spoil?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess the whole second act twist where what's the guy's name again?
Soda?
Soda, yeah, the one he sacrifices him. Like, the whole movie is basically, oh, you gotta shut the doors, and if you don't, you gotta plunge the whatever it is into the ground, and then you become the pillar, whatever it's called.
The Keystone, yeah.
And so, at the 2/3 point of the film, Soda becomes a statue, so it's basically a race.
He did not willingly sacrifice himself.
Yeah, the
Dojin
cat.
had already cursed him into it. He wasn't getting out of it.
Yeah.
Like,
that's another thing we forgot to mention too. There was a cat that formed out of one of the keystones and basically was like, yeah, I'm not being a keystone. I'm being a cat.
He didn't form out of the keystone. Him and the other one. They were gods.
Yeah, they were gods.
Who became the keystones to seal the worm.
Yeah. And, little spots get loose every now and then so the worms get out. But, now it's really bad because the Keystone has decided I'm not doing my job anymore. So it's opening a ton of doors everywhere it goes. It's also becoming a social media sensation, which
it was so cute.
Yeah. It is a fucking adorable monster of a cat.
Oh my god, and it was so sad whenever it got rejected.
No, it was not. I remember you saying that in the theater. Good for Suzume for telling Dojin he's a little piece of shit, because he is.
I'm sorry, he looked so heartbroken. He's a cat.
I'm not saying she shouldn't have said that. I'm just saying that is a really adorable animation.
Right?
He's still a piece of shit, and honestly gives me QB vibes.
But he's a cat!
Well, so was QB in some form or fashion.
He's cuter than that.
Okay, yeah, he is.
I was very glad.
Yeah.
Dojin got his comeuppance.
I understand
with,
that.
Suzume will love me now.
On a deeper level, I get that, but he's also just cute.
Yeah,
and I
was kind of wondering when it was going to happen that he was going to get shown hey, you can't be doing this, and Daijin be like, oh, why am I not getting loved?
Yeah, his story
then it just kind of was it became a redemption arc.
Yeah.
And honestly, at that point, gods are kind of like children.
Yeah.
It's usually like that in a lot of mythologies where they don't really think about the consequences of their actions.
Well, they're immortal. They don't have consequences.
So I can kind of see what they were doing with this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that he was ever malicious. He was just
to some degree, it reminds me a little bit of...
He was definitely malicious to Soda. But I think that was because he thought Soda was in his way.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me a little bit of, we watched that movie Neja, which I think is based on a larger Chinese legend or something, but it kind of has that similar element of he's childish, but he also doesn't mature because there are no physical consequences to his actions because he's more or less immortal.
Right.
And I think you see that with a lot of those kind of characters.
Yeah.
But, so it has to become, they have to have an emotional trauma.
Mm.
And I feel like this would even go back to stuff like Gilgamesh or something. Way back in the day. He's the God King, he's immortal, he's whatever. But then he runs into Enkidu, and there's emotional trauma. He's like, well, I have to learn from this.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Well, it's definitely better than a lot of Greek mythology where if they're rejected, they just outright,
stick a dick in it.
They don't learn anything.
Or rape them. They don't. They really don't. It's just, ugh.
Yeah, I hate to say it, but Greek mythology might be the most realistic. If people became immortal, they just become huge assholes and, not give a shit about consequences.
I think they are the most human of gods
what you're all
in any
saying,
mythology.
But the other god...
Yeah, Mom.
They showed it in a completely parental way.
Yeah.
Where it showed that they knew what they were doing and why they were doing it. Daijin just didn't want to do it anymore.
Yeah, I feel
Which is fair. I can kind of understand not wanting to do that anymore, especially considering the fact that, you're just kind of, locked in this thing for all eternity. And to have at least a little bit of freedom is kind of woo! It kind of goes to your head a little bit.
Yeah,
not to say that it's okay, but I'm just kind of I can kind of get it.
I feel like that's usually also an element in a lot of these stories when you have those characters who are gods or something who are emotionally immature and don't give a shit about consequences. There's always that one older god who probably was involved in creating the world, so they actually know and have seen here's the consequences of people's actions, and I'm responsible for everybody, so I'm going to be the parent in this situation. Though I guess in this one, are they their actual parent?
No.
No.
And even then, like, I feel they were at least somewhat malicious when they first showed up. Particularly when they were possessing the ant.
I
was like,
wondered about
Yeah,
that.
what was that about?
Yeah, that made no sense.
Well-
but I mean, I guess I too would be pissed at Suzume for actually letting him run off, even if she did it unintentionally.
My thing about
Yeah.
that was that I felt like it was not so much like a I made you do this sort of thing, but like I think the god was backpacking basically through the ant to get to where she needed to go, and that just kind of like lowered her inhibitions, or like whatever you want to call it. Like basically her just emotions were bubbling up already, and the god's presence influenced more stuff. It came out and it was like, yeah, you wouldn't have said that, but you have felt it a lot of times.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it was. I remember watching that in the theater, and I thought, "Whoa, that was way harsh." But then I'm thinking, "Well, wait a minute."
It's-
Well,
I'ma
but then
just say,
but
here's the
but
thing,
wait, hold on. Let me. At first, I thought it was harsh, but then the more I thought about it, the more I thought, okay, I'm sure people think certain ways about people that they normally wouldn't say, and they can still love them, and still, and they do make up at the end of the movie. So the more I thought about it, the more I was like, okay. Like I just said, that creature basically let the intrusive thoughts out.
Yeah,
And
that's pretty much
sometimes
it.
the intrusive thoughts can come out without the help of anything else.
No, yeah, that's another
like-
thing too.
Who knows? Maybe she would have had that reaction even if it hadn't been, sort of like enhanced.
I honestly think that between the two of them, it's probably better that it did happen, because those thoughts were bubbling under the surface. You know that the ant was probably ashamed of having those thoughts because of the situation that they were both in. But it doesn't mean that you don't feel them, and to some degree, airing them out, communicating them between you and the other person might help you both to move forward, because I guarantee you Suzume probably also felt that way about her aunt and how she affected her life after. I mean, if you haven't seen it, like, yeah, she was living with the aunt because the mom had died.
I wouldn't say either of them necessarily actually believed that the other had ruined their life.
No,
But when it is
yeah.
such a big life-changing event like that,
yeah.
like, it can definitely feel that way, even if you don't actually believe it yourself.
On another note, like, when I look at, like, the black cat and the white cat, I think it's, like, Dajin and Sada Dajin, or
Daijin and Sadaijin.
Dajin. It's like they're kind of yin and yang, right? Like,
Yeah.
A little bit.
One is more like love. Like, because Dajin, like, works off of, like, when I'm not loved, I'm like, he's like scrawny and he's nothing. But when he's loved, he's like powerful. And then the other one seems to like work off of negative emotions in a way.
Maybe.
And one's black and one's white. It seems almost like they're yin and yang to me.
I mean,
Like,
I
they're
feel
two sides of like people's emotions. Like, one, the darker, strong emotions, and one, the lighter, strong emotions.
Yeah, and like, I think, to some degree, maybe that was the thing, was like, thematically they're doing the thing for Suzume and the ant of like finding the balance between these like I have
love
these,
and hate.
yes,
And
like, because two things can be true at the same time, even if they seem paradoxical to
exactly.
each other.
And you see, like, in the car, like, the black and white cats like cuddle and are friends. They're like two sides of the same coins, and they almost look like yin and yang when they're sitting there.
Yeah.
And I think, it does just display like the emotions that especially Suzume and her aunt have in the cats. Like, it just seems invoked in that.
No, yeah, I think you're right.
So if we put it in that context, do we think maybe Daijin actually woke up because Suzume was like a kindred soul in that way?
Probably.
Where
I see
she
that.
was yearning to be like loved more than anything.
Yeah.
I think, and I think that usually
That's
is
one way you can interpret
an
it.
element in those stories where you have two people with similar motivations or similar wavelengths that they're working on. They sort of have like that magnetic pull to each other that usually causes the events to happen in a story. I mean, that's more of like a just narrative structure kind of thing, but I think on that level, yeah.
And like deep down, like she wants to heal others too, because she wants to be a nurse.
That's right.
And then Daijin like feeds off that,
Right, yeah. Huh.
Especially because it seemed like Sadaijin was really connected with Soda's grandfather,
Yeah.
who was definitely a much more negative person. Like, he was
Yeah.
very pessimistic.
Right. And you could see, like, the cat was cast in so many shadows, like, in the beginning, in that scene, and in the scene with the ant.
I almost wonder if, to some degree, you kind of have, like, the situation seems to be happening across the thing. You have Daijin and Sodajin, who have, like, that light one, dark one, and then the Suzume and her aunt, and then Soda and his grandfather, where they're the same thing of, like... But it always seems to be, like, the older one, like, life has just beaten them down a little bit. And so now they only see the negative anymore.
True.
Yeah. The older one is also usually always the caregiver, mostly through, like, we see the cat always, like, grooming Daijin in more, like, a parental sort of way.
That's why I got the mom thing.
Size, yeah.
Yeah, I guess they're not, like, parent and child, but, like, it definitely
one's older and more of a guardian.
It gave a mom vibe.
Mm-hmm.
Just a brat and a mom friend.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Speaking of French, should we mention the guy that they're actually mooching the car off of and then wreck his car?
That was what I was going to bring up. Tomiya, Soda's best friend, he's a fucking champ. Like, he's going after his friend, partly because, you know, he missed his entrance exam to be a teacher, but he's still concerned about his friend. And then Suzume basically forces him to take, like, an 8-hour car ride with her aunt to where her mother died.
No, she was running from her aunt originally, remember?
Yeah.
She hopped in the car and she was like, go, 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 before she finds me.
And the aunt thinks that, oh no, she's in a rebellious phase, she's 17, she's running off with a guy who knows what.
Hold on, I just want to just check real quick, because I might be misremembering. He didn't drive off with her, right? Like,
no.
the aunt
jumped in with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was like, what? Because he was actually, get this, a responsible adult in this movie.
Yeah.
He was like, is that your caretaker? Why are you running?
I'm going to throw this out there, because I think this is, again, another thing that shows up in a lot of Shinkai's work, is the friend with a car who takes you on this road trip for some reason. That they're just a really good friend. I think Shinkai at some point just had a really good friend who took him everywhere.
Maybe.
He's like, hey, I gotta go to some other prefecture to do a thing. Can you please give me a ride? He's like, yeah, I got nothing to do this weekend. Let's go.
And then he goes into detail about how he's working on this car. The hood didn't work, and then it worked, and then it didn't work, and then they get into a fucking accident, and they crash the car. I felt so bad for him.
It didn't work. Like, it couldn't go all the way.
Yeah.
Until they crashed the car and the door fell off.
That got a good laugh.
Then it closed.
That was great.
He's like...
you just hope he has insurance. I do kind of wonder, and this might just be me, because I'm, like, trying to figure out, like, why would this guy be willing to do this right now? I think he was hot for the aunt a little bit.
I was definitely shipping the aunt and him together.
I kind of feel bad for the guy at work, though, who clearly is into her. He was in love with her.
Yeah, they were kind of building that up at work, but...
I mean, she's got options.
She's got options.
We can just say that. She can get it.
She cried on the college guy.
Honestly, it was just a long time
They're kind of irrevocably bonded after that road trip.
I feel like she just kept too much bottled up. That was bound to pop out at some point.
So your niece and my best friend went to a spirit world and nearly died trying to save us from giant worms. Okay, yeah, we're only going to be able to talk about this with each other because no one's ever going to believe us.
I hear you, but at the same time, I'm reminded of the movie Speed, where they bring up, relationships that start because of extreme situations rarely work out. I'm just saying. But I think, like, part of the thing for the aunt is like, oh, I was never able to get married, or like, this is happened, that, or blah, blah. Like, no one seems to give a shit about that. I feel like this is
I think they all want her anyway.
Yeah, it's very much a her hang-up. Like, she feel like it's an internalized sort of like, I should be doing this, or that, or blah, blah, blah. Society says this, but really,
even just she feels undesirable because she comes as a package now.
Right.
Yeah.
But
and it's kind of like just one of those things where if you are like a woman and suddenly you have to like take care of a child or even like, a family member.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff gets shunted to the side because you have to, this person is now your responsibility. So for a lot of people, like, it's just kind of one of those things where it's like you lose a lot of opportunities in that way. And that's kind of like when her emotions were bubbling up, like why that all came out, because she felt like she missed out on a lot. And she just kept getting older. And a lot of women feel that, like, the older they get, the less desirable they become.
Right.
And wasn't she really young when the kid became her responsibility?
I want to say she was probably like early 20s or something. So now she's like 30-ish, getting up there a little bit, mid-30s maybe. But I think part of the thing...
I will also say there is a very real chance that she may have been afraid to date at all because... there's this fear of bringing someone in to meet a child in your care.
Right.
And then they don't end up sticking around or it doesn't work out.
Yeah, that's a big thing.
And, like, that's a hard conversation to have with a child. And it can negatively impact them because children need stability.
I forget who it was, but I think there was a comedian who, like, kind of brought up, like, mom... You know what? I think it was in Jerry Maguire. Moms don't date. You're either serious or you're not, and you're not going to be in that life. But I kind of think, to some degree, and I just wanted to bring it back to that I think a lot of these feelings are mostly coming from her, and they're kind of like this internalized thing, because, like, clearly, and she might just... I think it's one of those things, she's not looking. She's not looking at the opportunities that she has in that area. But clearly, a lot of the guys who are around her don't care. They are still into her.
I mean, definitely that guy, like...
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
I feel like he was fully ready to be stepdad.
Yeah.
But
the fisherman?
she's not looking at all. She's like, no one will desire me. So clearly the guy who has puppy dog eyes for you for probably years is like, that's not a thing.
Yeah.
The guy who's literally like, I'm gonna take you anywhere. I will go get Suzume for you.
That's two guys.
Just
two guys willing
word.
to take someone anywhere in a Makoto Shinkai movie.
Okay, I will argue the best friend was willing to take them anywhere for Soda, not for Suzume or her
Alright,
aunt.
you know what? That's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah. Still.
So maybe the actual relationship was him and Soda.
I mean, yeah. I like it how he was like, for most of the movie, he was like, he owes me like 20 grand or something.
Yeah.
He's like, I just remembered, I'm the one who owes him. So if you could not mention that, that'd be great.
He just wanted to look cool.
Yeah. I mean, but to that end, it kind of comes back to, I think he was kind of into the aunt a little bit. Honestly, the aunt, just the way we're talking about it, she kind of reminds me of Nani from Lilo and Stitch.
A little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit.
But we all know that the second that Lilo would be totally cool if she just got with David. No one's going to have a problem
so
with it.
good,
Oh
man.
my god, what a
I
what a
feel
champ.
like in the
Oh my
later movies or TV shows they dated. I feel like that was
They
a
did.
thing.
I think they did in the TV show,
Yeah.
right?
I hope.
Yeah, I think that they
both of
were
them just
at
deserve to
least
be
in a
happy.
relationship
Yeah.
by either the second movie or the TV show.
Yeah.
I think at the end of the second movie, they were a thing because he was featured in like all the family photos at the end of it.
Yeah.
True.
That's from the first movie.
Even the first movie, he was in all family photos.
Well, I mean, he's clearly, I guarantee, I don't know
Close.
whether they stated, they clearly dated in high school or something, and it clearly fell off after the parents died and yada, 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 but like he stuck around a lot.
Really? I didn't know.
You don't get that vibe?
No.
They're friends
Yeah.
now, but I definitely...
I don't get the vibe they ever dated.
You know they were in love with each other.
I mean,
no,
yeah,
I kind
but
of get the
I
feeling
don't think they
that
dated.
Nani was kind of friend zoning him for a long time. I kind of got that vibe.
But it was
Friends
for...
with
just
him
too
because
busy,
she
you
had
know?
to take care of her sister.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think he understood that. He's like, this is not going to happen.
And that's why
now,
I think they didn't
but-
date, because he understood, like, he had to step back for a while.
No, and
So
that's
he didn't ask her
that's
out.
good, but like, yeah.
But I think later on they got together.
I'm hoping, because I don't think we got much of an answer of it, because maybe it wasn't the most important thing, but I'm kind of hoping the aunt opened herself up a little bit after
yeah,
this road
I
trip.
imagine she
And,
did.
you know,
I like to think
everyone's
so.
allowed to be happy.
Yeah.
I think that's a sudden trend that's happening with some of the recent Makoto Shinkai movies, is you're allowed to have a happy ending.
Yeah, more so than
Except-
the original ones.
Except Soda and Suzume getting together. That's still a hard no for me.
Yeah.
They never.
Yeah.
Okay, they never. Okay, it clearly stated that she had a high school crush on him, but I never got the vibe.
I don't think
He
That
didn't
he
give
was
me
after
the
her
vibe of
romantically.
that, no.
No.
No, I
think
don't
he-
think he was after her romantically because he hardly knew her, and then he was a chair
He was
Yeah.
a chair.
fighting his chair feelings.
But I think
Yep.
he does care
Yeah.
about her and has a lot of appreciation for it. Like, you did so much for me.
I think he
You
cares
are a
about
friend
her
for
a
life.
lot, and they are friends. But like,
Yeah.
I don't see him as romantically interested.
Although I have
Hopefully
to
not.
admit there was scenes in the movie where she was blushing over the chair, and I'm thinking, Suzume, are you getting a weird kink right now or something?
The kiss in the chair thing in the trailer got me.
I mean,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I think they were at least trying to put that
He was
in like
really
a
cute as a chair.
fairy tale context. I have to wake you
Yeah,
up with
like
a kiss.
maybe if I
Yeah.
kiss him, he'll turn back into a human.
Which I do like the.
But also, she just really wanted to kiss him.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah. I do like the sort of element of, like, they have this, again, the urban fantasy kind of element of, like, we know these are things, we understand an element of these things, but we're flying by the seat of our pants. We don't entirely know all the situations here. I'm turned into a chair. None of this makes sense. Try whatever. Because we don't know.
I mean, yeah, I mean, she kind of like flew away in the middle of a busy, crowded street.
Yeah. And no one
because she
noticed.
was like hanging on to the worm.
That's a hell of a climax.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was good.
I mean, I guess it's like part of two climaxes.
I was gonna say there was like two climaxes. One, the first time where she was over the giant worm over Tokyo, I thought, okay, that could be a climax, but then the actual final climax in the
With the other,
is it
in
the
the other
spirit
world, yeah.
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 That is the third act.
Yeah.
That's the third act climax.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say maybe the Ferris wheel was like the first climax.
Well, no, that's more of a part of the rising action a little bit. I mean, it's definitely a midpoint for the movie. But
I feel like that was just part of the second
no,
act.
Yeah.
just because it's where they kind of like finally cornered Daijin and were like speaking to him.
yeah,
And you really kind of got to see the allure of the other world.
yeah.
And then like the Tokyo thing kind of felt like a separate build up.
So I would say you're better, you know more about structure than I do. Would that be like the midpoint, like where you're in the darkest place kind of thing? You've taken some losses, and now you have to work your way up towards the climax again?
I mean, I think the darkest part, like the
Would be
dark
right after Soda was
night or whatever,
right,
was when
yeah, yeah,
Soda
yeah.
was gone. But I think the end of the first act, of course, would just be when they start their adventure. That's the start
Yeah,
of
getting
the
on the
second
ferry.
act.
Yeah.
And then the end of the second act is the darkest point with
Mm.
Soda. And then that starts the third act with her finding him. And then you have the climax at
Yeah.
the end of the movie.
Okay.
And then falling action. I think the Ferris wheel was just part of the second act, to be honest.
Yeah.
Speaking of their journey, can we talk about how fucked up it is that one mom, while being amazing and just allowing this child to hitchhike to a completely separate city with her, which
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
not a great idea, but was then like, oh, well, you'll work in my host bar to repay me
I feel,
after babysitting my children.
I feel like this is like a thing of different cultures. You would not try to do that in America anymore.
No.
Probably not.
No.
This is more of
But-
I think a Japan thing
Yeah, because
than
I know.
think it is an American thing.
Obviously, no matter where you go, you gotta be careful, understand your surroundings, know this and that. But I've heard stuff, and I can't confirm a whole lot of this, but like that there's like 5-year-olds who walk blocks and blocks to school and just don't worry
They
about
take the train by themselves
Yeah.
to school.
like they just live in a society over there where I guess
So
things are just safer. I don't know.
it's I do harp on the hitchhiking because like who the fuck would do that these days? But again, yeah, it's probably a culture thing, but
Yeah.
more than that, it was that she had what she knew was a child, a minor, repay her by working in her host bar.
She was busting
She was just
tables.
serving, though. Yeah,
She
she wasn't actually hosting.
Yeah, that would have been
Yeah,
a
I would
little...
say I
Yeah,
was-
but
She.
And I did say it might be allowed.
No,
in
in
there.
places like that, like even one of the men was kind of trying to make a pass at her before the other woman cut him off.
Okay, but the woman cut him off.
I will also say that Japan's a little bit
I know, they hire
weird about this sort of thing, too.
Yeah, they
particularly
do
with
Yeah,
teenage
that's a
girls.
whole, yeah. But
Kozi, remember, she gave her the product placement at McDonald's that's in every one of his movies.
that's true.
I'm just saying, like, that, even if the other woman, like, cut him off, like, it's not a safe environment for a child to be in, which she obviously acknowledged because she doesn't want her own children anywhere near it.
I mean, they shouldn't be up that late
They're
anyway.
like toddlers.
Yeah, but like had she been like working the front, I'd be a little more on board with what you're saying. But like, I think she was mostly just like cleaning tables and that. Like, you're not really there to do and yeah, the guy was creepy. I will give you that.
Elle, I
feel like
I
the
think
person
you're looking
running the
at
place-
this in an entirely to man perspective.
Oh, we're gonna go there. Okay.
No, I kind of agree with him though.
I'm gonna go there because
if she had just thrown her out there and
Okay,
been like,
okay.
do whatever, and I'm not gonna watch you,
show
that'd be
of
one
virtual
thing.
hands. Show of virtual hands. Who has a vagina, was working a completely normal job that had nothing to do with selling your assets, and were hit on by a man at that job for no
Me.
reason other than you were someone with a vagina at your job.
I mean, yeah, it's
Yep.
gonna happen everywhere.
What's the connection here?
It doesn't matter that she was just bussing tables or cleaning them.
I hear what you're saying, but you also had the people there making sure that they were in control of the situation. Had they just like set her in there and not
No.
watched anything and then just been like, let whatever happen, that's a terrible situation. But this was clearly a mom who was like, I got you, bust the tables, I'll watch your back, don't worry about these guys, I have them under control.
Wasn't she drinking?
And that's the situation.
Yeah, no, the mom was drinking.
She can clearly hold her
hostesses
liquor,
drink
though.
with their customers.
Yeah, that's
I don't
not like the most.
I don't know
I
why.
don't know if I want somebody super
I-
not sober to be watching my back.
I don't know why I got this weird set. Like, am I the only one who felt like this was like these are people she knows?
I think they're regulars.
Like I don't know. Like,
Wait, do you mean Suzume or the mom?
no, the mom. Like,
yeah,
these
no, they're
are
probably
just, like,
her regulars.
Yeah, I didn't get the sense that they were all like random people. I don't know.
The cat was
It
random.
doesn't matter. It's still a host bar.
I think, like, it seemed like a pretty small one. I'm pretty sure these are, like, the same 5-6 people who show up every night kind of thing. So she
I don't. Yeah, I
knows
don't know
how
that
to,
it
what
was
to
like
do,
a-
make sure everything's kosher.
Either way.
No, nothing about that was kosher.
We're gonna have to agree to disagree here. Cat shows up, leaves, and then more chasing. More road trip. How many road trips? I mean, the whole movie is a road trip movie, but how many people did she hitch a ride from by the end of this?
The orange girl,
Mhm.
the
mom.
the mom,
The
best
friend.
the best friend.
Why I feel like I'm
And then
missing someone? I don't think we'll count the fairy because she paid for that.
Yeah.
Was she just sitting in the back of... No, that was Orange Girl, the back of the truck or something.
I don't think she actually did pay for the ferry. She just ran on board.
Oh, they didn't check her ticket. Damn, she's a stowaway.
I think that's why she was outside.
That's a good point. I thought it was like so she
Yeah.
could talk to the chair without looking like a crazy person. But
That's
you have...
part
That's
of
a
it,
good
maybe.
point.
She paid for the bullet train.
Right, they were on a train at one point. That's right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. She had a credit card, so she was able to,
Well, then she was also on at least a couple buses at some point.
Yeah.
Yes. It does give you an idea a little bit of, like, the size of Japan, which I don't think a ton of anime always does. Like, I don't know what everyone's frame of reference usually is for, like, distances and that, but I think, like, Japan is, like, about the size of the Northeast United States, more or less.
if
It's
you wanted to
smaller.
get from the very top of Japan to the very bottom of Japan, it would take you a long time, though.
Yeah, depending on the trains and stuff like that. I know there are certain ways of getting, like, way
Oh,
fast
yeah.
on some of those bullet trains, but the way she's
I wish
going,
we had stuff like that.
Oh,
in
it'd be
America.
super easy. I'd be going
Seems
everywhere.
So nice.
Japan is not that big.
Yeah, but, like,
It's
it,
roughly the size of California.
yeah.
It's not that big.
Well, California is one of our largest states.
Yeah, but it's one of our states.
I know, our landmass is enormous. In landmass, we're like, what, third in the world, though? That's a big difference.
Okay, so
We're not
me
saying
and
that-
CC actually made, like, a road trip, basically, from the top of the United States to the south of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it took us about 15 hours.
Okay. Now, what method were you taking, though?
Car.
Like,
And
driving?
Kozi drives
or
like a
what was it?
maniac.
I was
Yes.
gonna say, I'm like, if you drove, you might want to add on a couple more hours. Also, if you came
No.
from like,
15 hours was the projected time.
Yeah, that's what Google Maps said. We did
and
it
that's
closer to like
going from
13.
where to where?
Pennsylvania to Orlando.
So also add on the rest of the Northeast.
It's not that much.
We'll add on
We
at
are-
least like
Maybe like
hours.
another hour and a half.
I feel like, and we'll see what happens if Patreon becomes a thing. Maybe this is a thing we should test. Let's see how quickly Kozi can get from one end of the United States to the other. Document the whole thing. We'll hop you up on like 10 shots of espresso. You'll just take an all-nighter.
Someone mapped out the ultimate road trip that lets you hit every single state.
That could be an
I
option
think
too.
it takes like 4 days driving nonstop to get across from one side to the other.
I think we
Talking
should
east
do
to
one of
west?
those
Like width.
things like
Yeah.
like when we watch those guys go to every rainforest cafe, like we need to pick a place.
Oh,
and-
Eddie!
I'm almost,
Eddie
you know,
Burback.
and I know this is Patreon content, but I'll say it here. I always kind of wanted to do like recreate a movie road trip.
Mm.
You know, National Lampoon's
Oh, that'd be
Vacation or Smokey and the Bandit or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, take the route and see what you see and all that stuff. Because there's a lot of really good road trip movies out there.
True.
So
We should
I
do
just
the
looked up
goofy
the-
movie one.
I just looked up the time that it takes to get from Hokkaido, northernmost point, to Kagoshima, southernmost point of Japan. And by train, it is 5 hours and 48 minutes.
That's a
Oh,
pretty
wow.
good train.
Yep.
I want to do that Goofy movie idea, but what are the places? Because that's
Does
that's
it?
a
All made up.
yeah, it's a made up.
Is it just like a
World.
straight shot? Like, you don't
Yeah.
have to like transfer any trains or anything?
It's including transfers.
Okay.
So,
Is
Yeah.
that a bullet train?
yes.
Yeah, they got them trains down there, over there, not down there. I think we're on the same.
Yeah.
Level
I
is
love
them.
how we were kind of like discussing this in terms of like road trip. You would not be able to road trip across all of Japan.
It's all islands.
No.
I mean,
Well, actually, no. I think
you
they built
could.
bridges between all
They
of
could
them.
put-
but-
I will throw out there. I saw the ferry had cars driving on that were going
That's
underneath
true.
the
There's-
sitting areas. So
I was gonna say there's
You
a
can
there's
get
a
the car.
podcast that I occasionally listen to, and the three hosts did a cross country tour of Japan. So
Ah,
that sounds
Nice.
cool.
that would be awesome.
Do we need to start planning road
Yeah.
trips?
Yeah, I think so.
Yes.
Okay, but we may need a more stable car between all of us.
We
We'll
also
figure something
need
out.
to at least not
But there-
necessarily have a
Here's,
car,
here's the thing. There's multiple
but
cars.
we all need passports or someone who can actually like
As
drive
of
in Japan.
right now, I think we're only saying that it's in the United States.
Yeah.
So
One day,
Well,
we'll
I'm
go
just
to
saying
Japan.
that-
we don't need
That
passports
15-hour road trip cost us our muffler in, was it North Carolina? I think it was North Carolina.
yet. I gotta put together a list of the
Either way.
best like road trip movies, and we're just gonna like recreate all these movies.
Yeah.
That sounds like a Patreon.
So, like,
Certainly
renting
does.
a car would be way too expensive because they started charging per mile you drive.
I
Yeah.
think what we would do is just go with the people whose cars actually work the best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But will they fit everybody?
We'll fit.
I
we'll figure it
mean-
out.
No, squish.
Yeah. Even
Okay,
then, like
okay,
most of
so-
our regular cars can fit about 5 people, including the driver.
You know what?
True.
I feel
Yeah,
like
but
I
then
feel
you
like
have to account for everyone's stuff, but also this is
What
now
are we
becoming less of a road trip, more of a caravan thing.
I was gonna say convoy.
So I
Like the
think
movie
another thing
Convoy.
is like for this one, we're packing light.
Should we just
We're not
get an
bringing
RV?
all of the shit.
We got ourselves a convoy. No one else knows that movie?
No.
No one knows the rubber duck. Gotcha. Anyway, feels like we got very off topic at the end, but this
Yes.
was about Suzume. And so, end of the day, what did everybody think? I enjoyed it.
Oh yeah, it's a high
Yeah.
for me.
It was
Yay.
so good. Yay.
I feel like definitely it makes you feel like you want to take a road trip.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and if that's the sign of a good movie, is it makes you want to do something. Makes you
Yeah.
feel things, it makes you want to do things. And this did both. I give it a yay. And yeah, so we should talk a little bit about next upcoming weeks. We talked about we're going to do a couple more Makoto Shinkai movies. I was kind of thinking, why don't we just do them in reverse release order?
Sounds good.
So we had
Okay.
Suzume this week. Next week we can do Weathering with You. Week after that can be Your Name. And then what came before that? Was that 5 centimeters or was it something else?
I believe it was something else.
Okay. Well, we'll look into doing further. But for now, next week, Weathering with You. And then we'll keep going from there. We hope you join us. Let us know what you thought about the movie yourself in the comments. Blah, blah, blah. Like and subscribe. You know how this all works. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Hey, thanks for watching, and if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe and ring the bell icon for notifications. If you enjoy this video, give us a like, and if you haven't already, check out some of our previous episodes, our daily gaming videos, or our parody series Madoka Magically Abridged. See you next time!